So the toolkit's a collection of these independent, yet I would say highly intertwined lessons geared at getting you to create music. The toolkit kind of was a development of my own kind of fumbling and experience with creating instrumentals and original songs, as well as having the ability to interview people like Scotty Hastings and Ben Morrow and Jesse Freerd, particularly about the guitar as a tool for songwriting. And so we had done these different interviews in different areas and started splicing them all together. So, for example, you'll see right from the get-go in our introduction, we kind of end it with part of the Ben Morrow interview where he's telling you not only is it fun, but really anyone can begin creating original music with this. And then we also have the interviews from Jesse and Scotty in the, I think it's Stoking Our Creative Process. Nope, it's in the Let's Create Some Music, I think. And there were specific questions about, what gets you motivated to write songs? Do you do the melody for, I mean, it's all those kind of common questions we kind of think about, but this isn't necessarily a quote songwriting program. We really focused on the guitar as a tool. And so these 8 sections are the topics of the toolkit. And they were chosen in part from these interviews when we were asking them, what are the essential things that would be helpful to know to use your guitar to create music? And so what do we mean by creating music? Again, we're not thinking only of the traditional lyricist and songwriter. I think when we think about creating music, it's really playing chord progressions. It's new and different ways of writing songs on the guitar. We value just as much the bedroom guitarist who is, noodling around and creating chord progressions and instrumental bits and pieces as we do the professional singer-songwriter. And we think the toolkit has something to offer both. So the analogy we kind of like to use with this that we talk about in the introduction um, is to think of yourself as a painter and your guitar is your paintbrush and the chords and notes are your colors that you have to work with. And your two hands, your fretting hand and your strumming hand, are how you apply the paint to your canvas. So while we put a lot of emphasis on creating your own music, I would argue that the toolkit provides theory without using the T word. There's a foundational information in there when we talk about what 7 chords are in a key. So any guitar player interested in bettering his skills, whether it's creating original music or not, will benefit from this. I do want to say, and we try and kind of spell this out a little bit, that I make a distinction between the novice guitar player and the beginning guitar player. The novice guitar player never picked it up yet. They're going through the callus stage. They're learning the open string names. They're learning chords and chord transitions. That's a novice guitar player. When you graduate, or if you've tried to lunk around the guitar and teach yourself for 6 months or so, you're a beginning guitar player. And so we do say, and one of the messages we put out there often is anyone, any beginning guitar player can begin to create original music. You don't need X number of hours of lessons necessarily, X number of hours of theory. You don't need to know a dozen chords. Right away in the introduction for the chord progression formula, there's a great little video. If you're one of our teachers and you want to encourage your students that if you only know 4 chords, show them this video. This is a stand-up comedian group that does 50 songs using the same 4 chords. Different keys, but your ear will know, at least 40 of those songs. And it's hilarious that they're just doing it using the same 4 chords. Finally, we call it the toolkit because it isn't really, if you look at this, it's not really in sequential order. We kind of looked at this as a guitar toolkit that you open up, and depending on where you are in your development, you could grab one of these tools and use it to expand your knowledge to create music. So it might be about the capo, it might be, and these are really intertwined. I mean, it's hard to talk about the chord progression formula without getting into numbering the notes and the progressions. So today, we're not really going to go through each section. That wasn't necessarily what we wanted to do. We wanted to show you by our own personal journeys kind of three applications, Glenn's, Daniel's, and mine, that we had with some of the material in the toolkit. So I'm going to ask Daniel, who jumped headfirst into the music is emotion section of it, and have him talk to us about that.
I have my teacher glasses on, you see.
They work.
Yes. I'm kind of nervous now because everyone that's here, I know most of you all. So, music is emotion is the section that really caught my eye. In all my years of playing, I've probably used every tool that's in that toolkit. The only thing I couldn't find was the wrench to do my truss rod adjustment. I've been intrigued by songs that you can create emotion from, especially being a hard rock player. There's so many songs that I mean, you can get angry, you can get rowdy, you can get just a ton of emotions that come out of a lot of hard rock songs that I've played. Um, so it's not just using that 1-4-5. Although you can do it, there's ways. For instance, like finger picking through, a three chord progression, just how you finger pick it. Arpeggiating, that's always an excellent way of trying to create some kind of an emotion. Or going outside of the common progressions, and as one section in the toolkit is bringing in the in-laws, and that's for instance, I was just looking at it. It's taking like the fifth of your chord progression, but going into that using some of the family that's in that fifth chord that you would use. So it's there's no set rules. So many ways of creating emotion by just the chord you use or what you're playing. To me, there are some chords that really, uh, on their own, stand out, like minor chords, perhaps a well placed sharp or flat within your progression. Um, Maybe adding a little tension with either diminished chords or suspended chords. Suspended chords are great for that. So if I did this, if I just played an A, let me bring this on. There we go. Everybody hear that all right?
Mhm.
So if I just play an A, kind of happy, kind of bouncy, kind of okay. Now if I just go down, I drop that to the A minor. You can hear the difference in the emotion. So I've got, well, I'm going to stay on some basic chords. I've got some progressions that actually a secret admirer had sent to me. And I'm going to play them and see if you can possibly detect an emotion out of them. So here's the first one. What kind of an emotion would you think that is? You can go ahead and open your mics, guys. Anybody? Ah, there's my man Carlos. What
What's
do you
up,
guys think?
Dan?
Does that present like a sad feeling to you?
Yes. Yes,
So
it does.
that's exactly what you would be going for. All it is simply using there's putting that one minor in that chain, and it's F, D minor, C, and G. So you can see how that just dropping that minor in there works. Let me do another one that'll even be probably even more sadder sounding. So that would be a using two minors in that song, in that progression. So you can see that feeling. Now, if I wanted to change it up, I'm gonna try to not be so sad, but I'm gonna still keep some minors in there. See if it makes a difference to you in just the way the progression is flowing. I'm not gonna change any of the, try not to change any of the strumming to it, just to see if it works. Any ideas? Would it be moving or romantic or joyful or sad or happy or anyone?
Kind of sounds like a 50s progression.
Yeah, but like, would it
Like
be
doesn't sound sad and it doesn't sound too happy, kind of in between.
like how about a romantic,
Yeah.
For some
a
apparent
love
reason, I don't
song,
know. It just gave
a
me a
love song?
nostalgic. It gave me
Let
a
me play it
nostalgic
again.
feeling.
It gives you what?
Can you hear me? It gave
Yes.
me a nostalgic feeling of Back to the Future. Uh, I can't think of this. Give me a second.
Let me play it again.
Romantic, yeah, definitely.
You hear it? Do you
Yeah.
hear it?
Yeah,
Hey Dan, for some
And
I think Joel's at a burger shop with roller skating, people bringing out malts and the French fries and the burgers.
Yeah.
right
That sounds
now,
pretty good for lunch.
let me play that same progression like this. Does it change it?
Was it the
Maybe a
last
little
chord that you
heartbreak.
changed?
Instead of going to for the end, there that's F and G, by the way. It's a C, A minor, F and G. It's instead of the voicing. Does the voicing change it much? Versus
Hey Dan, would it be wrong for me to sing over and say Earth Angel, Earth Angel?
that's exactly what I got. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Good ear
So
there. Good ear there.
excellent job. So you can understand that even though there's minors in it, even though minor can be that dark chord, it can still be uplifting in a run or in a progression. Let me do this one. There was one that I had with sharps and flats, and I thought it was kind of neat. That's adding some sharps into that. So it kind of, to me, puts it more into like maybe an epic kind of a song. If it was really, if you kept progressing with that, you could hear over a good driving lead solo, perhaps. It would really bring out that, you know, uh, just an epic, a moving kind of progression. So you can understand, that's how I saw that. The last thing I'd like to do, and this was pretty cool. I fell on this, and this was from one of the sections of the toolkit, and I think it was inviting the in-laws, or was it? Where did that clip come from
It
for
was the
Purple Rain?
beginning of music is emotion. That's the whole idea, listening to those four chords, the
Was
motion.
it was what was where was the Purple Rain clip?
Music is emotion.
It was in Music is Emotion. Okay, well, so I was right on. Uh, Here we go with that. Let's hopefully this works. All right. So I came across this. It's kind of neat. See if you guys notice it too. There's this is Purple Rain, and I'm not going to say what key or any of that it's in later on. After we get done, I'll let y'all hear it. So this is Purple Rain. All right, kind of ballady. Um, I'd say an emotional, definitely an emotional intro. Actually, the whole song. That's the song. Then I come across. I was like, that sounded to me like another song that I played, and no, and it is this one. That was to me is kind of sad. Yet the same chord progression.
Daniel, what I think's interesting about that is the faithfully, alls we're hearing for the most part is one instrument, the organ doing that. And in Purple Rain, we're really just hearing, I think there's one drum beat in there, but it's basically just the
It's
guitar.
just one guitar, right?
Shared
So it,
chord, shared chord progression, but like to me, completely different emotions.
mm-hmm. Now I'm gonna do this, and thanks to Paul for doing this for me. He synced them up pretty good. But this is both songs together, and I'll try to hit the with my finger so I'm not really spotlighted. I don't know what you can see, but when those chord changes happen, and it was fascinating. Freaky, huh?
Hmm.
I don't know what to feel now.
So it just the same progression, the same chords. It was in the key of B flat, and there's you can obviously tell there's embellishment by and additions to the chords that in Purple Rain that Wendy Melvoin did, and then in Faithfully it was Jonathan Cain, the keyboard player, and you can hear some of the similarities. There's still the same bass chords, but you could hear where the embellishments were done, and then when you put them together, it's kind of interesting that they almost fit. They could probably be played. That keyboard line could be within Purple Rain, and Purple Rain could be within Faithfully. So, there's so much more in that music is emotion. This is only a small demonstration of what that module has, or what that section of the modules have to offer. It's there's really so much in there for beginners to experience. Like one of the things I didn't know was that second dominant chord, the secondary dominant chord. I that section kind of blew me away when I started playing around with that. That's where you're taking part of the in-laws, and bringing them in. It's quite fascinating. Paul did an excellent job on this. So, any questions on my part?
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you. And back to you, Paul.
Thanks,
Mr.
Dan.
Morris. So Glenn's going to talk to us about Let's Create Some Music, which is another tool in the toolkit.
Everybody see that?
Yep.
Excellent. So yeah, thank you, Paul and Dan. I found this to be really, really interesting. You know, I've been playing for 40 years, but all ear, play by ear, not a lot of theory. So it was really interesting to break down part of this, and I wanted to share what I found kind of fascinating in this part of the course here. So basic song structure, progressions, using three basic rules. If you're going to write chord progressions, this is an easy way to write things out, or at least begin with something, an idea in your head about, a song or a progression that you want to use. So you include 4 measures of music. Always start on the 1, and I have a chart here that shows you all the 1, the 2, 3, 4, 5, and you always end on the 4 or the 5 chord, because those are the chords that pull you back or resolve back to the home chord or the 1, and you fill in the 2nd and 3rd measure with any chords in that key. So I took this chart that will show you all those chords and things, and I kind of cut it down into something a little smaller. And the reason I did that is because in the key of C and G, you have very few sharps, flats, or difficult to play chords for early or newer guitar players. So it should be a little easier to do things. And I did not really realize this, but it kind of makes sense when going through the course here, about the whole point here about relative minor keys. So in the relative minor key, for example, in the key of G, you can see that the relative minors, they're the same chords. It's just where do you start? So here I get G, G, A minor, B minor, B minor, C, C. It's just the same 7 chords, except we're starting on this E minor in the key of E minor. I found that to be really kind of interesting, because I never really thought about it that way. But what that really means is that for newer guitar players, you can write in these 4 keys because there are very few sharps, flats, or difficult to play chords. So it'll make it a little bit easier for people who want to start writing chord progressions. You use the formula, pick a key that's easier to play in. So I got a couple of examples here, and I'm going to run through these. In the key of G, so if I do the 1 to the 5, excuse me, to the 6, to the 4, or I use the last one here, which is the 1, 4, 1, 5 in the key of G. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. You can see that it's pretty easy to start writing chord progressions or writing portions of songs that can kind of very quickly resonate with people. And if you finger pick them, then you'll get a whole different feel, or your strum patterns are different. You'll get a whole different feel. So same chords, just how you're going to approach them. You get a whole different feel for that progression. So when you start using scales, though, it gets really, really interesting. So again, I'm going to be in the G major scale, and I'm going to use this 2nd position of this G major scale. So that means I can do things like this. Hold on 1 second. So it was the same progression I played before, you know, the G to the C, G to the D. I added, notes from the G major scale for the bass line, and boom, I got Brown Eyed Girl. So, you know, don't be afraid to start using these tools, to come up with musical ideas for yourself. So I found this to be kind of interesting also, using a capo to change the key and play an open chord. So I have this chart that will show you, if I put the capo on and what key, what you're going to be playing. So example here in the key of G, if I put it on the second fret, I'm in the key of A. And again, I cut this out to make it a little bit easier. Key of G, capo on the second fret, I'm in A. So put the capo on the second fret. So when I play a G chord, I'm actually playing it in A. A C is a D, a D is an E. So you can change things to fit your vocal range or whatever the melody that's going on in your head. You can fit it to something that's more comfortable for you to use. So, and by the way, if you want to play songs by James Taylor, so you need to have your capo on the third fret because that's where James Taylor puts his capo. And frankly, if it's good enough for James Taylor, it's good enough for all of us. So look at using a capo not as a crutch, because you'll see the videos where people go, they don't like capos. It's a tool, and it's a great tool for songwriting and writing chord progressions that fit your vocal range or fit the melody in your head. So don't be afraid to use it. So, by the way, when you look at changing the key using a capo, here, using this example again, I'm in key of G, and I put the capo on the second fret. I'm playing A. Here are the series of chords I'm actually playing when I play these chords. So the chart I showed that shows I put the capo on a certain fret. These are the keys you're going to be playing in, depending upon what fret you put the capo on. Real easy to figure this out. I have a longer portion of this document that talks about how do you figure out what vocal range and hence what key you can write songs in that will fit you personally better. Make it easier on yourself. So that was a little bit about using rules to write chord progressions, but you can also break the rules. So for example, starting on the 4, like Wichita Lineman, starts on a C, and till it resolves to a G minor, which is what the song is in the key of, but it starts on this C. Or Pretty Woman. Which is in the key of A, which is where the verse starts, but it starts on an E. So you don't have to fit within the rules. You can get outside the rules, or you can, in the chorus, Paul has a piece on no rules. It's really interesting. I think you'll have a good time with it. So the last part of this is making it your own. And this whole idea of motifs, really hadn't heard this term used a lot. So, but a motif basically is a few notes that leap out from a song and cling to your memory. So it's what makes it unique. It's what, in a sense, what hooks you. So I've got different, iconic motifs that we can play with. But my question is going to be for a lot of folks is, what makes that so unique? 3 notes. It doesn't have to be super complicated, but it certainly stands out in the song. If you're familiar with this song. Fast as You by Dwight Yoakam. It's a basic blues progression in E. Nothing really super stands out from that. So here's one I really kind of liked also here. Not that complicated, right? So the whole point of this is that all of these iconic motifs really are not that complicated pieces, but they're so critical to the song, and it's really what makes it unique and makes it yours.
Hey, Glenn,
So,
Glenn,
yes, sir.
more, more. I'm loving it. Are you using a
Okay.
looper pedal?
Am I using a what?
A looper pedal?
I'm using this Helix.
Sounded like you were playing over yourself.
Oh, I was. So it's using the looper built into the
Yeah.
Helix.
Awesome. Good
Hmm.
job.
So, uh, iconic songs.
Now we're talking.
It's a progression between C and G. It's kind of iconic though. So my question to the audience is these songs, you know, if you if you know these tunes, a lot of them are not real tough songs to play, but they're so iconic. So what what makes them unique using just that, you know, lick, that motif in the song? What stands out to you? How do you use that? That's a question for the audience. And when I'm sharing my screen, I really can't see the chat, so I'm not sure if anybody's coming back with anything or not.
No, I mean, I think that was kind of our whole discussion, especially using a song like Blackbird, which is basically two chords. We all know C's and we all know G's, but and so we are trying to figure out, well, what's a motif, what's a lick, what's a riff? And really what we're kind of saying is what makes a C and a G unique to the point where it's creating something new. So obviously you have McCartney's melody, but if you don't even have the vocals and the melody line in the lyrics, you've got that very unique style of finger picking over the C and the G. And like Glenn's saying, like most of these songs, I didn't look them all up, Glenn, but I'm assuming we're talking about, four chord songs for the most part.
A lot of them are very, I mean, if I use this one as an example, so so that riff, right? E minor, G.
Wild Night.
Exactly. I mean, but it's a pretty iconic song.
Mhm.
You know, the point here is that it's not super difficult to use scales to figure out riffs that fit chord progressions that you now can see how easy they are to come up with. It's not a big mystery here. So lots of things in the toolkit that will get you stoked and get you going with this. So I really suggest you go through the course because you'll come out going, oh, I can do that too. You know, Because you can see Brown Eyed Girl, not that tough. Now, I'm not saying everybody can write a song as iconic as that, but the mechanics of it all aren't that difficult to understand and for you to put into practice. So,
Awesome. Thanks.
questions, concerns?
I think we're good.
Okay.
If you give me, so we've had a few questions about the material that's being used in the toolkit. So I just kind of wanted to show you a few things here. In the capo section, there is a lot of information, including, so we're teaching you how to look at getting rid of bar chords using the capo with Hotel California, but I wanted to get to the handout. So this was one of the references that Glenn had. This is actually a hyperlink to a website that does the lesson on this. Sometimes we've hyperlinked PDF material for you. Sometimes we've hyperlinked other websites. In the chord progression numbering is where you saw Glenn's use, I think, of the blue chord. Yeah, this is kind of cut up the same way, the chord families. So this is on the numbering of the chords. And then we provided, let me see. And this is kind of a PDF handout that summarizes the information that Glenn showed you. It's kind of the same thing. It's a really nice way that has a numbering system, the different keys. What's kind of thing that Glenn was showing that the blue handout did. So I'm trying to like show you that kind of generally what the presenters are using is information that's available to us. Any questions before I come back to you? All right, perfect. So I wanted to, we just have like 15 minutes left. Most of you are guitar players. Obviously, if you're instructors for us and you are working with a student that's got a little bit more skills than we thought, you know, they might be in the late beginning stage, and so they might know their open chords, they might know some strum patterns already. If they start to show an interest in creating music, I can't tell you how many beginning students I work with when I talk to them about their practice routine. A lot of times they talk about, yeah, I just like to hold a guitar and make stuff up, whether it's strumming patterns, whether it's finger picking patterns. And that's really what we're trying to tap into. We really want to encourage that. So think of this as more tools maybe for your resources. But a really quick kind of overview of what I learned from this, I'm going to bring you back to 1977. This was my band. And when I say that, I was the youngest of 6 kids, all who loved music. So my oldest brother and 2 oldest sisters, and we're talking 12, 13-year difference from me to my oldest. Peter, Paul, and Mary was playing in the house, Cat Stevens, The Association. With my sisters, I got you know, the show tunes. I got South Pacific, I got West Side Story. I mean, it was a very musical house. The brothers closest to me, I've got Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull, the Beatles. And when I hit 1977, I was 16. The other 3 moved out of the house, so I finally got my own bedroom that I wasn't sharing with anyone. My first paycheck, I bought a $500 Nikon receiver and a Gerard turntable and some borrowed speakers, and I had some vinyl. And so Foreigner was the first band that was mine that I didn't, not that it was bad to be open to all that music, but this was my band. I heard Cold as Ice. I heard Feels Like the First Time. I love Mick Jones's guitar work. In 77, I'd been playing guitar for only 3 years. So if you journey back with me, most of you can because you were alive then, no internet to learn songs, no YouTube channels with lessons to learn songs. I wasn't familiar with tablature, let alone being able to do it or find it, and none of my friends did it. I didn't have a lot of guitar playing friends at the time. So if you wanted to learn a song in those days, you bought the music book, or you took your needle and your vinyl and you kept playing a piece over and over and over again. So I have a story about a song. It wasn't one of their big songs on the first album. It's a song called Head Knocker. And as I often did, I had my stereo blast and I was holding my acoustic guitar, and it just so happened, dumb luck, that I struck a chord at the same time that Head Knocker started, and it matched. And I thought I was like something. I'm like, I could figure this song out. So what I want to do, it doesn't matter if you don't know the song, but I want to play just the beginning of it. It vamps off of two chords. So now I know the first chord is an A, and my goal is to figure out that second chord. And I'm going to show you how I went about that, which I wouldn't recommend, and show you, had I known what I know now with the toolkit, how it would have been a direct line to figuring out what that stupid second chord was. So let me see if I could play this for you. I just kind of want you to get it in your ear. There's my A chord. That's the second chord. So of course, what did we do in those days? I'd put the song on over and over. My little seat was right by the vinyl where I could grab the needle and move it. And I wasn't listening to the whole song. I'm just trying to get that frickin' second chord. So it was a series of doing this. And I learned, obviously, I don't have a great ear. And I will tell you, I believe I was born to play guitar, but I have no natural ability. I'm not one of those that the learning comes fast and the learning comes easy. It's all about repetition, repetition, repetition for me. So it's a slog. I don't have particularly big hands. I don't have speed. So it really was kind of, if you were to play that song right now, the needle probably dips just at that one spot because I'd played that out so much. So here's how I would try and do it. I get my guitar and I try and time it. And then what would I do? Well, what I knew was a lot of chords. So I started a process of trial and error where I tried to figure out what that second chord was. And in my head, it sounded like the chord was going down a little bit. So here's how I would do this. Well, that wasn't it. I'll try a B minor. All right, so a B minor sounded a little closer than an F. So in my brain, I'm thinking maybe I should just go up to the alphabet and try a C next time, since that B minor sounded closer. Yikes. And so that was what I was trying to do, trial and error in learning that stupid chord. Then I remembered a friend of mine had given me, and I'm not selling this thing, I wouldn't recommend it now, but it's the only tool I had given me something called a Theo wheel. It's very dizzying to look at. He gave it to me and I, didn't understand what to do with it. It's a little wheel where you could change a key to get the chords that you'd want in a certain chord progression. And I'm going to make this a little easier for all of us by bringing this up. So I'm in the key of A. That's what I figured out with this song called Head Knocker. And what this does, it doesn't tell you numerically in order. It puts all 7 of the chords in the key of A on the top. And the middle row, which we won't get into, it's the relative minor. It meant nothing to me then. And it's a little confusing because it's not in alphabetical order. You think if you're in the key of A, you'd start with A, B, C, D, etc., but it doesn't. It gives you the 3 major chords first, the D, A, and the E. So in my little brain, I'm like, oh, now I need to know if that second chord is major or minor. I don't know if you want to put in the chat. I'll play this one more time. Put in the chat if you think that second chord is major or minor. And because I was really into the lead, my ear kept going to that riff, which kind of got in the way. So I was really struggling with that second chord. What are you saying in the chat? Is it major or minor? Daniel, you're muted,
It's a
Daniel.
mix. It's a
It's a
mix
mix.
of
Well,
major and
good.
minor.
Major.
Good, because I was having trouble hearing it. I did know that because someone once told me, and we actually cover this in the toolkit, that major chords sound happy and minor chords sound sad. So that's all I had to go on in my ear. I was thinking it sounded, there's a very bright A chord. So to me, it didn't sound as bright. So I was guessing minor. So that meant I'm not now looking at the four chord, the one chord, or the four chord. So I just started playing the song again, and I'm going to start with a B minor. And I'm like, no, that's not it. So I move over to my next minor. What the heck is that? An F sharp minor.
Right.
I know it's minor because they're telling me that. So I would go. Oh my gosh, as soon as I hit that chord, I'm like, that's it. And an F sharp minor wasn't in my repertoire. So this is an example, and of course, I put the Theo wheel away for many years and still didn't learn from this. But the idea is that the ability to kind of use, while we do say that the music is for everyone, the toolkit learning is for everyone. You don't need X number of hours in theory, all of that. Honestly, though, the more that you kind of understand these foundational things, the more you can create music. You have kind of an idea of what you're doing. I just gave an example of figuring out songs. I mean, obviously, not all songs, a lot of them do stay within the key. There's modulations and other things, but it's a really good beginning to kind of build off of what Glenn was saying in terms of playing with chords in the same family, figuring songs out, which is what I did with Head Knocker. And I wanted to show you in our chord progression. So this was kind of from the chord progression formula where we were learning, this is what the chord wheel was showing, the major, minor, minor, which is what we're calling our formula. And then you could apply it to different keys. And so the visual that I liked a lot better than that Theo wheel is, again, this handout. You know, if I was going with the key of A in line, if I would have had this back in 77 and I knew it first, I would have known I'm in the key of A and I would have got it on my 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth try if I went right down the line. So that's just an example of kind of both kind of marrying up the chord progression formula and the other one, which is really just a lesson on how we number. I generically call it a numbering system because I kind of favor Roman numerals. There's different numbering systems that use different ways to denote the notes, the chords in a chord progression. And then we even have a very ending part of this, which gets into the Nashville numbering system, which is a completely different system here. But I'm going to